So today we're going to talk about the basic blowout kit, the absolute bare minimum of materials that should be in that kit. With every one of these materials, you not only need to have them, but you need to know how to use them. There's really no sense in having medical equipment in your pouch that you don't know how or aren't trained in using. So just like understanding your carbine and how to run it efficiently, you have to do the same thing with all of your medical supplies. This is just another feather in your hat when it comes to being a competent shooter. So you can see this one's been marked with a paint pen. It's just quick and easy. This will wear off after a while and I'll go back and reapply the paint. You can also get fancy if you want, buy patches and just stick those either via Velcro or sew them on yourself somewhere onto your pouch. I'm going to open up this pouch, show you what's inside, do a quick overview of what's in there. Okay, so in a high-speed gear ink bleeder blowout kit, there's two ways of closing the lid on these. One, you've got a Fastex snap. Two, you've actually got hook and loop Velcro. So you can Velcro that down if you want the added security. I don't feel it necessary, so I just keep the Velcro covered over so that there's less noise when opening and closing. Really, if you're treating an injury because someone's been shot, sound discipline isn't going to be that big of a deal. Once you get the pouch opened, on the newer ones you can see they've added this pull tab. This pull tab is pretty convenient because you can just grab it and pull, and it will pull the materials inside out, or at least up, so you can grab them and remove those. We'll go ahead and do that now. Trauma shears. You'll always have trauma shears as part of your med kit. There's multiple uses for these, but obviously for removing clothing or anything that's restricting the body, the area that you need to work on. High-speed gear ink has added a pouch or sleeve, if you will, for holding trauma shears. There's different types of trauma shears out there. You just have to research it on your own and get what you need. Not very expensive, $5-6 a pair. But in the case of the high-speed gear ink bleeder blowout kit, just simply pull the snap, pull them straight out, and there's your shears. Here's the basic components that I carry as a bare minimum inside of my bleeder blowout kit. Of course, we've already covered trauma shears. There's not much to be said there. I've laid out 2 tourniquets here. There's probably 15 different variants that are all effective as long as you're trained and know how to use them. These are 2 of the more popular ones. This is the Cav-Arm Slick Tourniquet. It's popular because it's not very expensive and it's easy to use. About $15. I'll put a link to that below. This is one of the most popular that's out there. This is one of the ones that the military uses. This is your CAT tourniquet, C-A-T. These are about $30. They're about twice the cost. So if you're buying a lot of these for several blowout kits that you're putting together and cost is a factor, you might have to weigh that. If you're just buying one, get one of the better ones you can get, but make sure that they're not too complicated and that you do understand completely how to use them. Of course, one of the most important things are your gloves. These aren't really to keep the wound sterile, but they're to keep any pathogens, tainted blood off of you. So if you're working on yourself, it's not a big deal. But if you're working on others, it is, because you don't know what they've got and you may not want it. Same thing with the face shield. These are kind of a pain. They're not ideal, but and even getting away from doing mouth to mouth and as much with CPR these days. But if you need it, you've got it, and look how small that is. And they cost nothing. They weigh nothing. Why not toss it in there, right? Maybe you'll be glad that you did. I've got a Sharpie marker. if you apply a tourniquet to someone, or someone's conscious and they lose consciousness and you've been able to find out their allergies or what medications they're on, you may not remember that. I know I typically don't. So you can write this on, and you have a couple of options. One, if they're in bad shape, you can just write it on their forehead. They're not going to lose their forehead. It's going with them to the hospital. But always also use something like this, one of these little cards. I'll put a link to these below. This is a triage card, but it just is essentially, what's great about it is it'll remind you of the things that you need to be checking on and some of the pertinent information that you need to write down to give to the paramedics when they arrive. And again, this is very inexpensive. It's about $3, I think, and weighs nothing. So why not toss it in there if you can? I've also got a chem light. I'm a little hesitant about showing you guys this, other than this is just an idea. Very inexpensive, about $1 a piece, and you can use this for eliminating any injury at night. I'm hesitant about showing it to you because I think it's a pretty poor substitute for a real light. So you'd be much better suited if you could afford to put a little pin light in there, even one of the little mini mag lights, whatever. They're not that expensive. That should really be in your medical kit, because that'll do a much better job of illuminating a wound area than this chem light. I've tested these at night, and well, they're pretty poor actually. So if you're on a poor man's budget and this is all you can afford, this is what you go with. Don't go with nothing. But if you can afford to put a pin light in there or a decent flashlight, you'll be much better off. Here's another one of the most important components to your bleed or blowout kit. Just as important probably as your tourniquet. This is just an Israeli bandage. So all of these will have an expiration date, so make sure you're getting ones with good expiration dates. This one will go from 2012 to 2017, which is a pretty good span of time. And at about $5 to $7, $8 a piece, this is a small one. You'll want a small one for your bleed or blowout pouch. If you've got a larger pouch, then you can go with a larger one. This is a one-sided bandage, but again, buy a couple of these, especially if you can get expired ones. Buy the expired ones and use them for training. Put them on your dog or on your kid. Figure out how these things work so that you're familiar with them in case you ever need them. And of course, have one with a good expiration date in your kit. This is something I picked up that I use in addition to the Israeli bandage. There's two different brands here. These are just non-stick pads. You can pick a box of these up at your local pharmacy for a few bucks. Very inexpensive, weigh nothing, very thin. And you can place this on the wound first. Put that against the wound, add your Israeli bandage over the top. This is useful if you're going to be in a long-term situation. Maybe you're out hiking and you don't have access to immediate medical care. Maybe you're overseas, or you're just in a situation that you may end up having to change this bandage. Well, if you go and pull this bandage off of a wound, which is a big no-no, you'll open up the scab of the wound and the bleeding can start back. So using a non-stick pad, this can stay on the wound and it'll prevent your Israeli bandage from sticking to the wound when you remove it. As inexpensive as it is and as light as it is, I keep these in my med kits as well. The high-speed gearing bleed or blowout pouch only takes up 2 rows of MOLLE. It's about 6 rows of MOLLE tall. Roughly the same size as a double M16 magazine pouch. Couple of extra materials that you can consider. This is really popular, your Combat Quick Clot. Different types of this out there, just understand how to use it. But again, not that expensive. This can go in your kit if you're familiar with it. Just understand the pros and cons of using it. Also, nasal cannula. These can be really, really helpful. I've got lubricant attached to this one. And I don't carry this in my bleed or blowout kit. I do carry this in a larger kit. But it's something that if you're familiar with how to use and you've applied a couple in a training class, this could be added to your med kit. And you'll fit that in the bleed or blowout kit, no problem. for those of you that are on a budget, common man price, you may not have 40 bucks to throw down on a high-speed gear bleeder blowout pouch. But that's okay, because even your double M16 magazine pouch can work fine to hold all the materials that I outlined earlier in the video. Doesn't work quite as well. It's harder to get to and pull these items out, but it will work for those of you that are on a budget. So don't ever let price get in the way of you being combat effective. So these are all the things that I would recommend that you keep or consider keeping in your blowout kit as the most basic medical kit. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like and share if you did. Post your questions and comments below. I'll definitely try to keep up with them and get a reply. You guys stay safe. Thanks for viewing.